Your reality has already changed. But her routine, she's still acting as if nothing happened. And this creates a kind of discomfort that is difficult to explain, because on the outside, everything looks normal. You wake up at the same time every day. It does the same things, talk to the same people. It follows the same script as always. But on the inside, nothing is the same anymore. It's as if some kind of switch has flipped inside you. And yet, their lives continue to revolve around the same pattern. And that's starting to bother me. Not in an explosive way, but constant, silent, that kind of feeling that appears in the middle of the day. When you stop for a few seconds and think, why does it seem like my life no longer represents me? And the strangest thing? The fact is, nothing big happened outside. But inside, everything changed. Their way of seeing things, to feel, to understand. And then a modern conflict arises that almost no one knows how to name. You've evolved, but you continue to live a day that was created by an older version of yourself. And if you don't understand that now, this feeling only intensifies, because it's not about what you do, it's about who you've become and how far your routine has fallen short of that goal. So tell me something. At what time of day do you feel most like you're on autopilot? You've updated internally, but you're running an old system on a daily basis. What's happening to you? It's more common than it seems, but almost no one understands it clearly. You've changed, but it wasn't an external change first. It was an internal incident. His way of thinking has evolved. His perception became more refined. You start to see patterns, things that went unnoticed before. But his routine did not keep up with this update. And this creates an invisible delay. It's like updating a cell phone's operating system, but continuing to use old apps that no longer work properly. They even open them, but they freeze. They give an error. They don't respond like they used to. And you just stand there, insisting, without realizing that the problem isn't the effort. It's the incompatibility. Your consciousness is already on another level, but your habits still belong to the previous version of you. And that explains why simple things started to weigh on us. Not because they've become more difficult, but because they stop making sense. And when something loses its meaning, even if you keep doing it, that starts to wear you down in a different way, deeper, more mental than physical. And perhaps you've already noticed this in the little things of everyday life. Activities that were previously automatic, they now require energy. Conversations that used to flow, now they seem forced. Environments that were once neutral, now they're a nuisance, and you try to maintain it, try to follow the same pattern, but something inside you just doesn't keep up anymore. And that's the point that changes everything. Your internal system has already been updated, but his practical life, not yet. And this difference is what's causing this constant discomfort. Routine begins to generate silent exhaustion, not from the effort, but from the incoherence. And this is where many people get confused, because he looks at his own routine and think, but I don't even do that much. Why am I so tired? And the answer is not in the quantity, it's about consistency. You are not tired from what you do. You're tired of maintaining a routine which no longer represents who you are. And this generates a type of exhaustion that doesn't appear in the body at first. It begins in the mind and it keeps going down. It's that feeling of waking up and already feel a light weight, even before the day begins. Not because it's a difficult day, but because deep down, you know you're going to repeat something that no longer makes sense to you. And this creates small internal disruptions throughout the day. You do. But it's not whole. You participate, but doesn't get involved. You reply, but without presence, and little by little, this will drain your energy. And that's where the most dangerous modern conflict comes in. You start to question things. Am I becoming demotivated? Have I lost my discipline? Could the problem be me? But no, it's not a lack of discipline. It's a lack of alignment, because discipline without meaning becomes a burden, and purpose without action becomes frustration. And you're right in the middle of it. knowing that it has changed, but still living as if nothing has changed. And this creates constant internal friction, like two versions of yourself trying to occupy the same space, and one of them, it no longer fits there. You keep doing it, but you're no longer present in what you're doing. There's one detail that changes everything, but it goes unnoticed if you don't pay attention. You're still doing the same things, but inside, it's no longer inside them. His body is there. Their routine continues as normal. The tasks are completed, but his presence is no longer the same. It's as if a part of you is always a little distant, observing you start something, but your mind already disconnects halfway through. You hear someone, but it doesn't really absorb it. You reply, but without feeling it. And the most curious thing, the thing is, you often notice this happening and try to come back, try to concentrate, try to get involved, try to go back to normal. But it doesn't hold up for very long, because deep down, it's not a lack of attention, it's a lack of connection. You're living a routine that no longer resonates with who you've become, and that's where modern exhaust systems come in. You pick up your phone without realizing it, open something, close it, open something else, scrolling through the screen without even knowing what you're looking for. It's not about interest, it's an escape from that slight discomfort. I'm at sea of being present in something that no longer makes sense. And perhaps this bothers you more than you admit, because it feels like you've lost something. Focus, interest, engagement. But the truth is different. You didn't lose. You overtook me. But his routine hasn't reached that point yet. And that's why you can no longer be fully present in it. Now let me tell you something that can change the way you experience this moment. If this makes sense to you, don't let this pass by as just another video. Because this kind of perception, when it arrives, it's not by chance. Subscribe to the channel here. Not like an automatic click, but as a conscious choice to continue understanding this process that you are going through. Because the more you ignore it, but this misalignment is growing. But when you start to notice, everything is starting to get back into shape. And what comes next? That's exactly where most people get stuck. The biggest problem isn't what you do. It's maintaining a version that's already expired. What else is tiring you out? It's not your routine. It's the character you're still trying to maintain within her. And this is deeper than it seems. Because without realizing it, you're still acting like someone you've stopped being. You still try to fit into conversations that no longer represent you. He still responds in ways that are no longer natural. It still maintains certain patterns, simply because it's always been that way. And every time you do that, something inside you feels it, not in a scandalous way, but like a small internal crack, subtle, but constant. It's like acting in a role that you no longer believe in. In the beginning, you can sustain it, but with time, it's getting heavy, artificial, tiring, because it's not just what you do. It's the effort to maintain consistency with a version of yourself that no longer exists within you. And that drains more than any other difficult task, more than any other busy day, because it's a silent, energetic, emotional drain. And then you get to the end of the day and doesn't understand where this tiredness came from. But that's where it comes from small, accumulated inconsistencies, from micro decisions where you abandon yourself to maintain something that no longer makes sense. And the most delicate part, it happens almost automatically. You don't even realize it at the time, you only feel the effect later. And here's the turning point. The problem isn't that you're lost, it's about you trying to stay where you no longer belong. And as long as this continues, this feeling won't go away, because it's not something that can be solved by resting. It's solved by aligning what you do, who you have already become. And on the next point, we hit the exact obstacle that prevents this from happening. Because you've already realized that you need to change. But he still hasn't been able to take that step. And there's a very specific reason for that. You know you need to change, but you don't know where to start. There is a very specific moment in your journey where you can no longer say you don't know. You noticed. You realized that your routine no longer represents who you are. He realized he was repeating patterns that no longer made sense. He realized that he was living days that belonged to an older version of himself. And even so, you continue doing the same things, following the same rhythm, maintaining the same structures. And this creates a deeper kind of discomfort than the previous one, because before it was chaos. Now it's awareness, and awareness without action weighs heavily. It weighs on you because you start observing yourself in real time. You are in the middle of an activity, and a part of you thinks, this doesn't make sense to me anymore. You are in a conversation and realizes that he's just responding on autopilot. You make a decision and you feel like it wasn't really you who chose it. And the most uncomfortable part, that's because you see all of this happening and yet nothing changes. And then comes the internal judgment, silent but constant. Or, why do I keep doing this? If I already understand, why can't I act differently? What's holding me back? And here's the truth that almost no one tells you. You're not stuck due to a lack of clarity. You're stuck because clarity doesn't eliminate fear. She reveals it. And what is being revealed now? That's the real cost of changing. Why change the routine? It's not just about changing habits. It's about tampering with the structures that have sustained your life up to this point. It's about leaving situations where you already know how to act. It's about changing dynamics with people. It's about making decisions that may not be understood. And most importantly, it's about ceasing to be a version of yourself that was already known, even if it wasn't true. And this activates something very profound. The fear of losing stability. No real stability. But that feeling of, yeah, at least I know how this works. And then, without realizing it, you enter a dangerous state. You begin to negotiate with your own evolution. You think, I'll wait a little longer. It's not the right time yet. And when I'm more certain, I'll change it. But deep down, you already know. The moment won't arrive perfectly, because he doesn't come from outside. It is born when you decide. And while you wait to feel completely safe, you continue to live days that no longer suit you. And this creates accumulated wear and tear. It's not a major collapse. These are small, repeated inconsistencies every day. And every time you ignore what you've already realized, and something within you is weakening. Not your strength, but his inner confidence. Because you start to feel like you're betraying yourself in small doses, and that is more tiring than any demanding routine. Discomfort is a calling, not a problem. Now breathe and pay close attention to this, because this can completely change the way you perceive what you are feeling. This discomfort that keeps appearing, that constant feeling that something is out of place, this is not a system error. It's the system working, but you've been conditioned to interpret it differently, to avoid discomfort, seeking immediate relief, returning to what is familiar whenever something bothers you. But what you're experiencing right now, it's not a common discomfort. It's not about having a bad day. It's not about temporary tiredness. It's a discomfort caused by misalignment. And it has a very clear function: to show you that there is a distance among who you have already become and the way you are still living. And the greater that distance, but this problem keeps appearing. It becomes more frequent, harder to ignore. And perhaps you've already tried. Try to distract. It will be taken care of. Convincing yourself that it's no big deal, but it always comes back. In moments of silence, at the end of the day, or even in the middle of an ordinary routine, for no apparent reason. And this happens because of this discomfort. He doesn't want to be eliminated. He wants to be heard. In practice, it's an internal adjustment taking place. A part of you saying, this is no longer for you, but since it doesn't come with clear words, you feel it like unease, as a sign of dissatisfaction, like a slight emptiness even when everything seems okay. And here comes the most common mistake: trying to go back to what was comfortable, just to stop feeling this way. But that doesn't solve the problem, because you've already seen it. You've already noticed. And then you see there's no way to unsee it. You can even try to fit in again, but it will never be the same again. There will always be a part of you, observing, questioning, feeling that it's not the same anymore. And that's why this discomfort increases over time. Not because you're getting worse, but that's because you're becoming more aware. And here comes the belief breakdown that changes everything. Peace is not the absence of discomfort. Peace is alignment. It's when what you experience on the outside, it matches who you already are on the inside. And until that happens, this discomfort will continue to appear. Not as punishment, but as a direction, as a continuous sign that something needs to be adjusted. And when you stop running away from it, and then he starts to really listen, this discomfort ceases to be a burden, and it becomes clear. Even if it's just at the beginning, this is still frightening. Change doesn't require a revolution. It requires daily consistency. There's a very common mistake people make when they realize they need to change. You think you need to become a completely different person all at once, change everything, break the entire routine, making big decisions, to make radical moves. Just thinking about it makes you freeze because it seems too heavy, too risky, too far removed from your current reality. And then you postpone it. But the truth is different. The transformation you are experiencing, it doesn't call for extreme rupture. She demands consistency. Consistency between what you already feel and what you continue to do every day. And it starts small, but it's much deeper than it seems. It starts when you stop forcing yourself to continue something that clearly no longer makes sense, even if it's just a detail, a conversation that you can no longer sustain in the same way, a habit that you begin to adjust, even if subtly, a different choice among many similar ones. And that seems like a small amount, but it isn't, because every small aligned choice, it's a silent affirmation of who you are becoming. And the more you repeat that, the less you abandon yourself, the more you do. The less you betray yourself in small decisions, the less you'll see, and then you start to feel something that was missing. Wholeness. Not because everything has changed, but because you've begun to respect yourself based on what you've already realized. And here comes an important turning point. You don't need to leave your life to start changing your life. You need to stop acting like someone you're not, within the life you already have. That's what repositions everything. It's like adjusting the axis. The structure is still the same, but the direction changes completely. And with time, this accumulates. Small choices become the norm. The pattern becomes identity, and identity begins to shape reality, without forced effort, without chaotic disruption, only with consistency. And that requires something that many people avoid: presence. Because you can only act differently when you realize the moment when you are about to repeat the automatic behavior. So, choose differently, even if no one sees it, even if it seems small, even if it doesn't produce immediate results. Because the point here, it's not a quick result, it's continuous alignment. When your routine catches up with your reality, everything starts to flow. And then a moment comes where what previously seemed like effort, it's starting to become natural. Not because you pushed for long enough, but because now there is alignment. Your routine gradually begins to reflect who you are today. And that completely changes the way you live. Same time of day, they begin to have a different quality. Decisions become simpler, because you are no longer internally divided. The yes answers become more genuine. And those who say no cease to carry guilt. And most importantly, your energy changes, because before she was being drained for maintaining inconsistency. Now she's starting to get directed for upholding truth, and that's very different. You no longer feel that constant heaviness, that invisible resistance, that constant need to escape. because now you are present. And when there is presence, there is flow. And this is where many people misunderstand the concept of a protest. They think that manifesting is about imagining, desiring, hoping. But what you are experiencing now shows something else. Demonstration is a consequence of alignment. When what you think, what do you feel? And what do you do? They start walking in the same direction. Reality answers that. Not like magic, but how about consistency? Opportunities are starting to make sense. The right people appear more naturally. The paths no longer seem so confusing, because now you are accessing life from who you truly are. And it's no longer just one version that you were trying to maintain, and maybe you're not 100% aligned yet, and it doesn't have to be, because this is not the end of the story. It's a process. But now you've already started, and that changes everything, because it's different from before. You're not ignoring it anymore. You are aware, and little by little, He is choosing to live according to that. If you've made it this far, it wasn't by chance. At some point, you recognized yourself. In some sentence, you thought, that's exactly what's happening to me. And that says a lot, because for a long time, maybe you didn't know how to explain it. I could only feel it. I felt that something was different, that their routine no longer fit, that their days were being lived, but not represented. And now it's starting to become clear. The problem was never a lack of effort. It was never a lack of discipline. It was never because you lost focus. The problem was misalignment. It was about continuing to live a life built by a version of yourself that you've already left behind. And that's tiring. It's confusing. It makes you doubt yourself. But now you can see more clearly. You've changed. And there's no point in trying to fit this new version in anymore, in a routine that was designed for who you were before. It doesn't hold up. And perhaps this is the most important part of all. You don't need to have everything figured out right now. You don't need to change everything at once. You don't need to take a step bigger than you can handle. But you need to be honest. Be honest about what you've already noticed. With things that no longer make sense, what are you holding on to? Just out of fear of change, because that's where your energy is trapped. And that's when your life starts to fall apart. But when you start, even if small, even if imperfect, aligning what you do, who have you become? Everything is starting to fall into place. Not immediately, but consistently. And that brings a different feeling. It's not euphoria. And truth. It's you, finally, stopping neglecting yourself to fit into a routine that no longer represents you. And now I want to ask you something. But it's not just any comment, Dana, it's a form of recognition. If you feel that your reality has already changed, but His routine still hasn't caught up, comment here. My routine no longer represents me. But comment with awareness, like someone who stopped ignoring. Because when you accept that, stop fooling yourself. And it's really starting to align.